Yo, this your boy CEO Hockley. Real quick, man, today's episode is being sponsored by OGHollywoodspeaks.com. Yes, that's right. OGHollywoodspeaks.com has this fly gear, man. Savage Drive, man. He has this very fly gear, man. He's a former prisoner that changed his life, did 25 years after receiving a life sentence, got home, and he been home 10 years, man. He's been out, he's been free 10 years. He has his own clothing line called Savage Drive. It represents the kind of drive you need to have to make it to the top, the kind of drive you need to have to stay free, right? And as we talk about this prison topic, I want to highlight and show and give respects to those that have been to prison and that are doing the right things in today's society. Everybody go to OGHollywoodspeaks.com and get that Savage Drive. If you got the drive it takes to be successful, man, support him. Also, you can follow him on YouTube. You can follow him on all social medias at OGHollywoodspeaks.com. We appreciate the support here at CEO Talk, and we also like to support other black people doing something positive, man. Savage Drive, that is the clothing line. Get yours today. Salute.
Salute, man. What's good, man? I'm back in the building, as you can see. I'm back in the building, man. Y'all remember, go to www.com, OG Hollywood Speaks, man, and get that Savage Drive gear, because it takes a savage in order for you to make it on this flatland. And you have to have the drive, most definitely the drive, to get to the next level, man. All right, let's get into it, man. As you can see, I'm taking a step inside the Georgia prison system. Am I from Georgia? No. Could I make it in the Georgia prison system? Yes. Because I understand the ins and outs of prison. I spent more time in the system than I've spent free. So that's the reason why I answered that question, yes. So today, man, let's get into the Georgia killing of the food service officer. And I'm assuming she was a part-time or either full-time food service officer. However, she was a contracted worker. She was a contracted worker. Why? Because she worked for Airmart. And when you in prison, man, for those that don't know, man, strange things happen. Strange things happen. Why? Because you got two individuals that are around each other every day. And the communication piece of it becomes real when you spend hours and hours with an individual. It doesn't mean you know that person. However, if you're interacting with this particular person day in and day out, guess what happens? It's a relationship. The relationship starts to bond, and you start to trust one another with certain information. Trust me, been there, done that. Like I said, the relationship starts to form, and it moves from one level to the next. In other words, it moves from conversation to being physical. And when two grown individuals get together and the physical communication offsets everything in your life, at some time and point, you look forward to this. I don't know if that happened in this case, but in most cases, the person that's being denied of the privilege to be around this certain individual every day, he himself or she has invested a lot. What I mean by invested a lot, time. That man that's inside that penal institution, inside of his head, he feel like that he has invested so much in you that you can't do nothing else when you at work. Trust me. That's the way the man inside a prison thinks. And it's easy for that individual to become obsessed. It's easy for that individual to be in love. And it's easy for that individual to be psychologically hurt. Especially if that particular person is already mentally unstable. That's the number one key. If that particular person is already mentally unstable. Look at this for an example. Most men in prison on a day-to-day basis, their mental stability is tested every day. Why? Because they're locked up 24 hours a day. Sometimes things are not going right at the home. Sometimes it's not enough money on the books. And then not only that, you got to deal with being locked up for a substantial amount of time. What I mean by that, the time that the courts give you. Add that to trying to have a relationship, whether it be male or whether it be female, inside of a penal institution. Some say that spells for disaster. In some cases it do. In this case, it was disaster. It was disaster, right? Because once it reaches to this level, there's no turning back. And I know it's easy for most people to say, well, if I was working there, I wouldn't be involved or I wouldn't get involved. You don't know until you put in a situation to where you one-on-one with an individual all day and things are not going for you as you think they are at home. And you come into an institution where you're surrounded by men every day. You don't know what you're going to do. It's the same as a man that's put into an institution and he felt like he was making it on the streets. So there's nowhere in here he cannot make it in prison. That's not always the case. The strongest man sometimes falls victim to whatever's going on inside the system. And this is a prime example. I don't know this individual, but I do know this. When you are denied on a daily basis of interacting with the opposite sex and you finally cross that threshold, what I mean by that, you finally get in communication with the opposite sex, it's easy for you to fall in love. And it's quite simple if you've been where I've been. Like I said, relationships are formed every day in the prison system. Officers are getting fired on a daily. However, they are not being unalived on a daily. There's a lot of people that are in trouble at this Georgia prison. There's a lot of people involved in this Georgia prison. So let's not focus so much on what she was messing with the inmate or that don't goddamn me get rid of the fact that somebody brought this firearm in here to this individual. He didn't leave out of that prison and go buy that. Somebody brought that in there. Especially this Georgia prison system. This Georgia prison system is dangerous as they come. And not only that, short of staff. What I mean by short of staff is not enough prison guards to govern all the inmates in prison. Some say per guards that the inmates ran the prison. Well, every institution, inmates run the prison to some certain extent. But in this particular prison, they said they ran the prison. It was up to the inmates whether you go home at night. I don't know. I've never been to the Georgia prison system, but I am qualified to speak to whatever system it is. And I'm not going to say if you've been in one system, you've been in them all, because that's not true. But like I said, in this case, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that somebody inside this institution brought that firearm enough to this person. And he unalived this young lady. So I expect a lot of heads to roll on this. It's a lot of heads gonna roll on this, as they should roll. Why? Because somebody lost their life. Somebody lost their life. However, like I said, people are still human inside of whatever system you put them in. And once those people go to communicating with each other, it's going to be relationships bonded. It's going to be relationships built on whatever grounds you allow yourself to let them be built on. I don't know what this relationship was built on, but from the outcome of what happened in this relationship, guess what? It was more than friends. It was more than officer to inmate, high and by. These two particular people had established a bond. And like I said, it's always on the other end of the person that's being denied the privilege to go home every day is the one that's feeling like he or she has most invested in this. In other words, the mental becomes weak and that person becomes vulnerable. And then it gets to a point to where if I can't have you, nobody can't have you. But only two people know in this situation what occurred. That's the person that's unalived and the other person that's unalived. Those two people are the only one know what happened in this situation. We can guess all day about what took place in this particular relationship, but we do not have to guess that this person walked out of that prison and purchased that firearm and brought it back in and brought bodily harm and unalived this other person. Somebody in that prison system brought that firearm in there. And like I said, heads are gonna roll. It wasn't long ago before the warden at this particular unit was caught up in a scandal. So like I said, man, we all can form our opinions on what happened or what didn't happen, man. All I can say is this, man. Life exists on a chance. You take a chance as a correctional officer when you get up in the morning and you go inside one of those institutions. You're taking a chance of coming home and going back to that same place in the morning. Those are the chances that you take, because you don't know if you're going to return home that night. You don't know if you're going to be caught up in a relationship with a person on the inside. And that doesn't mean that everybody that's suited in a prison uniform or a jail uniform are bad. Because the same people you meet on the street, it'll be the same people you meet in jail. And half of America has been convicted of something. And it doesn't matter. So you cannot label a person as a felon that's not good. Because every person that's been convicted of a felony is not alike. Remember that. So let's get away from that stigma. If she wouldn't have been doing this or she wouldn't have been doing that, you never know what the situation was with this individual. You never know if it was bad at home or it was good at home. But something was missing at home in order for this person to come inside of a penal institution and to build a relationship with individual that's on the inside. Like I said, been there, done that. Been there, done that. So like I said, man, I'm here to bring some clarity to the situation for those that have never been locked up. Or should I say for those that has never been incarcerated. Relationships between inmates and officers are established every single day. But that is not the situation at hand. The situation at hand is who brought that firearm inside of that institution. That's the person that's most really responsible for this incident. It wasn't the two people that built a relationship, because without that firearm, those two people will still be here. However, this is my opinion and I'm just giving it to you. But what I'm going to do is bring it to you on a video and let the other people give their opinion. But remember to hit that like button, that subscribe button, man. We inside the Georgia prison.
And then killed the kitchen staffer before turning the gun on himself. Tonight, investigators say they believe the inmate and victim had a relationship. Fox 5's Rob D'Arienzo has been digging into the details of this very alarming story. Rob?
Yeah, and the biggest concern tonight is people really aren't sure about how that inmate managed to get his hands on a gun behind bars at one of the state's maximum security prisons and then use it. The Department of Corrections still does not have an explanation for us tonight, but we've since learned that the kitchen employee killed early Sunday morning was just 24 years old. The Georgia Department of Corrections says inmate Jadrakis Hart shot the Aramark food service worker inside Smith State Prison in southeast Georgia early Sunday morning. She's been identified as 24-year-old Orion Grace. The prison says Hart then turned the gun on himself.
That, to me, is shocking to the conscious, and I hope that this is a wake-up call for the Georgia Department of Corrections.
Joshua Schiffer has practiced criminal law in Georgia for 2 decades. He says this incident demonstrates a complete failure by the Department of Corrections leaders.
This institution, Smith, is a notorious institution because it's a high-security institution dealing with some of Georgia's most dangerous and threatening inmates.
Back in October, investigators say an inmate there shanked 42-year-old guard Robert Clark to death from behind. Earlier last year, the GBI charged the prison's warden in a sprawling contraband conspiracy. Hart was serving time for voluntary manslaughter and aggravated battery from a 2015 case out of Carroll County. His earliest release date would have been 2043.
This wasn't a shank or a piece of wood or a razor blade. This was a firearm with ammunition, and everybody needs to realize how dangerous this situation was and how indefensible this death is.
The entire state correctional system has been under a years-long federal investigation into allegations of civil rights abuses. The state legislature just formed a committee to review it from top to bottom.
This example is an unfortunate reflection of what's happening.
So like I said, man, this situation was just really an unfortunate situation, man, where two people got caught up in a relationship, man, and things went from 0 to 100 real quick. And those two people are not here anymore. However, the system is at fault. The system failed these people. It is the system's fault. It's nobody's fault other than the system. Down from the warden to the director, it's those people's fault. So when you go to point fingers, do not point fingers at the inmate or the officer. You point it at the system that was built around these two particular people. That's who ended their life. The individual that brought the gun into the system, that person is responsible for this situation right here. Y'all remember to hit that like button and that subscribe button, man. Like I said, I just took a look inside the Georgia prison system. The prison system in Georgia failed 2 people last week. Remember to hit that like button and that subscribe button, man. Salute.